The Return, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Late November. The streets were painted in shades of orange and brown. Covered in dry leaves, the cold wind pushed from one side to the other. The sky stayed overcast, as if winter were lurking, ready to make its final entrance. The scent of burning firewood lingered in the air, mixed with the aroma of pumpkin pies already baking in ovens across town. Everything looked the same, except Ben. Benjamin Carter, 42, was returning to Lancaster after nearly a decade away. Time had shaped him. The once black hair now showed soft gray streaks at the temples. His brown eyes had lost their youthful sparkle, replaced by a mature, watchful, and cautious gaze. Fine lines traced his face, stories no one in his hometown knew or wanted to hear. He stepped out of the rental car with his hands deep in the pockets of his heavy coat. He took a long breath before facing the house he grew up in. It was the same: white-framed windows, wooden porch, overgrown flower boxes. And yet, something felt different. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was the uncertainty of whether he'd be welcomed. Ben had left Lancaster after a heated argument with his father, years ago, when he finally gathered the courage to tell the truth. Gay. The word had come out awkwardly that Sunday dinner, between spoonfuls of mashed potatoes and uncomfortable stares. His father, a stern man of few words and strong opinions, had stood up from the table without saying anything. His mother, timid and quiet, simply looked down. No hugs, no words of comfort, just silence. And then, distance. Years of ignored calls, unanswered texts, forgotten birthdays. Until, 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, a message lit up his phone. "If you'd like to spend the holiday with us, the door is open. Mom." Ben stared at that message for days before deciding. And now, here he was, standing on the sidewalk, looking at the house like someone stares at an old photograph. There was nostalgia, yes, but also pain. With slow steps, he climbed the porch. Before knocking, he adjusted his scarf, as if protecting himself from the cold and the anxiety. He rang the doorbell. A few seconds of silence. Then, footsteps. The door opened. "Ben?" His mother's voice was still as soft as he remembered. "Hi, Mom," he replied, forcing a smile. She hugged him. Hesitant, but sincere. Time had left its mark on her, too. Wrinkles around her eyes, hair now more white than brown. He hugged her back, feeling his chest tighten. His father didn't come to greet him. He was in the living room watching TV as if nothing was happening. Dinner was simple: turkey, mashed potatoes, pecan pie, small talk. "How's work? Still living in New York? Cold up there?" No mention of the past, no questions about his love life. Ben answered politely, keeping the mood light. But inside, he felt like a stranger. That night, staying at a small hotel downtown, Ben stared at the ceiling for hours. He questioned if coming back had been the right choice. But part of him knew. He had to face the ghosts, or he'd never feel free. The next day, still heavy-hearted, Ben decided not to have dinner with his family again. Instead, he searched for something different. Something that would make the trip feel worthwhile. He saw a flyer in the hotel lobby about a community dinner hosted by a local church. They were looking for volunteers to serve meals to the homeless and lonely seniors. It seemed like a good way to stay busy, and maybe to heal a little. The community table. The church was only a few blocks away. An old red brick building with stained glass windows and a bell tower that stood above the rooftops. Upon arrival, Ben was greeted by an elderly woman with white hair named Eleanor, who was organizing the volunteers. "First time helping out?" she asked, handing him an apron. "First time here? I've cooked for a lot of people, but never in a church," he replied with a smile. "Then you're in the right place. Here, we feed stomachs, and hopefully, hearts too." While organizing the silverware, Ben noticed a man walking in through the back kitchen door. He carried boxes of ingredients and wore an apron patterned with fall leaves. Light brown hair slightly tousled, neatly trimmed beard, and a smile that felt far too warm for such a cold day. "You must be the new volunteer," he said, approaching. "Tyler. Nice to meet you." "Ben. Nice to meet you too." "You like sweet potatoes?" Tyler asked, lifting a full box. "If they're caramelized, absolutely." "Then you'll fit in just fine." They both laughed. A light, almost boyish laugh, the kind that warmed you from the inside out. They worked together for hours. Tyler was chatty, funny, and seemed to know everyone in town. He shared silly stories about his students. He taught English at a local public school and made terrible puns about food. Ben, more reserved, listened intently and laughed quietly. Between plates and trays, they exchanged glances. Nothing overt, nothing obvious. Just that spark, the kind that happens when two souls recognize each other. After serving over 100 meals, Eleanor dismissed them to have dinner. They sat together at a table in the corner of the hall. They ate slowly, as if time had decided to pause for them. "It's been a long time since I've been here," Ben said, looking at the stained glass. "Were you raised in Lancaster?" "Yeah, left in my early 30s, moved to New York. I tried living there once, 3 months, came back. I'm definitely small town," Tyler smiled. "Sometimes I think I am too. Took me years to figure it out." Tyler looked at him curiously, but didn't push further, as if he knew some things need time to be said. Before leaving, Tyler lightly touched Ben's shoulder. "If you don't have plans tonight, I've got a bottle of wine and a cozy couch. Just talk, I promise." Ben hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "I think that's exactly what I need." A sip of wine and 2 smiles. Tyler's apartment was in an old 3-story building near downtown. It was modest, but incredibly cozy. There were plants scattered around the living room, books stacked on makeshift shelves, colorful pillows on the couch, and an electric fireplace that gave everything a cinematic warmth. Ben sank into the couch while Tyler poured 2 glasses of red wine. The soundtrack was soft, instrumental jazz, barely audible. "I love how quiet this city gets at night," Tyler said, handing him the glass. "I used to hate it, thought it was suffocating. Now, I think I was just running from myself." They talked for hours, about books, food, travel. Tyler spoke about his love for teaching, his students who made him laugh, his frustrations with the school system. Ben talked about the pressures of the culinary world in New York, how he lost his passion for cooking, and the loneliness that sometimes came with success. At one point, Tyler asked, "Do your parents know you're here?" Ben nodded. "Had dinner with them last night. It was strange. My dad still can't look me in the eye. I'm sorry. It used to hurt more. Now, I just feel sad. For him. For me. For everything we lost to pride." There was silence, but not the awkward kind, the kind that holds understanding. Tyler leaned a little closer. "You know, sometimes we don't go back home to find others. We go back to find ourselves." Ben looked at him, eyes glassy. and for the first time in years, he felt like maybe it was possible. Not just to go back, but to start again. That night, there were no rushed kisses, no declarations, just two men, side by side, sharing pain and hope, and a wine that slowly warmed them from within. When Ben left, it was past midnight. Tyler walked him to the door. Before saying goodbye, they exchanged a smile. It wasn't a farewell, it was a see you soon. And that was enough. Silences that say everything. In the days that followed, Ben's routine in Lancaster began to take on a life of its own, shaped by the unexpected. In the mornings, he had coffee at the same modest hotel he was staying in. In the afternoons, he met up with Tyler, sometimes for short walks through streets decorated with autumn wreaths, other times to cook something together in the teacher's small apartment. It felt as if the town, once only a place of silence and discomfort, was slowly being rewritten into a new story. One afternoon, while walking along the banks of the Conestoga River with their hands buried in their coat pockets and their faces pink from the cold, Tyler shared a deeply personal piece of his past. They stopped near a wooden bridge, surrounded by bare trees. "My parents never visited me here. Not once. They don't even call on my birthday," Tyler said, nudging a rock with his boot. "When I left home at 19, my mom cried. But not because I was leaving. She cried out of shame. She said I'd killed her son." Ben took a deep breath. The wind stung, but not as much as that confession. "Did you ever forgive her?" he asked. Tyler didn't answer right away. He stared at the river for a few seconds. "I learned to move on. I don't know if that's forgiveness. Maybe it's survival. Maybe it's self-respect." Ben nodded in silence. He wasn't talking about it out loud, but his thoughts drifted to his own father. What did reconciliation even mean? It wasn't about forgetting. It was about continuing, in spite of. After the walk, Tyler suggested dinner at his apartment. They cooked together, mushroom risotto and roasted salmon. Ben found himself smiling again as he chopped onions, something he hadn't done with joy in a long time. Cooking with someone who didn't judge him, who didn't expect perfection, felt like freedom. Later that night, sitting side by side on the couch, silence returned. But this time, it was a gentle kind of silence. Ben turned, slightly toward Tyler, who was staring at the electric fireplace. "Thank you," Ben said softly, "for all of this. I didn't know I could feel this alive here." Tyler smiled, but didn't say anything. He simply rested his head on Ben's shoulder. They stayed like that for a while. And in that silence, so much was said. Maybe more than words could ever express. The unexpected invitation. The next morning, Ben woke up with a decision. It was Saturday. The town was preparing for the Thanksgiving parade. Kids rehearsing songs in the streets, shop owners decorating windows with golden leaves and smiling scarecrows. It was a cold day, but sunlight peeked shyly through the clouds. Ben had his coffee at the hotel, reflecting on the night before. There was something he needed to do, something that scared him, but felt necessary. Invite Tyler to Sunday dinner with his family. He picked up his phone, typed the message, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. After a few minutes of hesitation, he decided to call. "Hey, good morning," Tyler said, voice still groggy with sleep. "Good morning. Hope I didn't wake you. You did. But it was worth it, Tyler replied, lighthearted. I have a kind of crazy invitation for you, Ben said. I already like it, Tyler joked. Ben laughed nervously. Would you have dinner with my family tomorrow? There was silence. Tyler didn't answer right away. But it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the silence of someone thinking. Are you sure? No, Ben admitted. But I know I want to try. Another beat of silence. Then I'll be there, Tyler said. Sunday came with low-hanging clouds and the smell of food in the air. Ben spent the morning helping his mom in the kitchen. It was a familiar scene, but loaded with tension. His mom noticed his nervousness, but didn't ask questions. She just gave instructions almost automatically. Add more nutmeg. Turn the heat down. At 5 p.m., Tyler arrived. He wore a navy blue sweater and brought an apple pie he'd made himself. Ben's mom greeted him with a polite smile. His father muttered a good evening without looking up from his newspaper. During dinner, the conversation stuck to the surface. The weather, local traffic, Christmas decorations. Tyler stayed polite, kind, but clearly out of place. Ben felt every second like a test of endurance. Then, without warning, Ben's uncle, his father's brother, made a sarcastic comment about this overly sensitive generation. The air turned heavy. Ben set his fork down. He looked straight at his father, who stayed silent. I want to take this moment to say something, Ben began, his voice steady. Tyler is my partner. And the only reason I'm here is because I'm tired of pretending I'm someone I'm not. His mom looked at him with surprise, her eyes welling up. His father remained still, gripping his fork too tightly. Room went silent. I didn't come to stir up drama. I came because I miss my family. But I can't keep hiding. Tyler looked at him, quietly proud. It was a hard moment, but a necessary one. Dinner ended without shouting, but also without hugs. Tyler and Ben said their goodbyes, thanked them for the meal. In the car, on the way back to the hotel, neither of them spoke, but the silence had changed. Now it was the silence of two people who had just taken a step forward. A toast to the truth. The next morning, Ben woke to a message on his phone. It was from his mother. Can we talk this afternoon? Just the two of us. He replied, yes. At 3 p.m., he went back to the house he grew up in. His mother was waiting on the porch, holding 2 mugs of tea. Want to take a walk? She asked. They headed to a nearby park, where the trees, though nearly bare, still clung to a few golden and red leaves. They walked in silence for a while. You seem happy with him, she finally said. I am, Ben replied, eyes lowered to the ground. I wish I'd done things differently years ago. But I didn't know how. Your father. You know how he is. He grew up believing feelings are a weakness. I know. But that doesn't excuse everything. She nodded slowly. It doesn't. But maybe it explains some of it. And I want you to know that even in silence, I've always missed you, and I've always loved you, even if I didn't know how to show it. Ben stopped walking. He looked into his mother's eyes. There was old sadness there, but also a faint glimmer of hope. Is there still time to rebuild? He asked. She smiled gently. There's always time. That evening, back at the hotel, Ben found Tyler waiting with 2 glasses of wine. They sat on the small balcony of his room and raised their glasses to what were half-open doors. The next day, a cold and cloudy Monday, Ben received an unexpected phone call. It was his father. The screen read, "Unknown number," not because Ben didn't have it, but because he had chosen not to save it. Still, he answered. "Hello?" "Ben, it's your father." The voice was firm, just like he remembered, but there was a slight hesitation in his tone. Ben took a few seconds before replying. "Hi. I'm passing by the cafe downtown, the one near the church. If you feel like stopping by, I've got time." Before Ben could even say no, the call ended. He stared at the phone, heart racing. Tyler, stepping out of the bathroom, saw his expression. "Everything okay?" he asked. Ben nodded, not entirely convincing. "My dad asked to talk. Just the two of us. Now." Tyler didn't say anything. He simply walked over, took Ben's hand, and gave it a firm squeeze. A simple gesture, but one that said, "You're not alone." At the cafe, Ben's father was seated by the window, a steaming cup of coffee in front of him. When Ben walked in, he didn't stand, just nodded subtly. Ben approached and sat down, still unsure of what to expect. Silence settled in, longer than it needed to be. "Your mother says you've changed, seem calmer." His father spoke without making eye contact. "I'm doing well, living life on my own terms. I'm happy," Ben replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "She also mentioned that guy, Tyler." Ben took a breath. "Yeah, he's important to me." His father went quiet again, stirring his coffee like he was searching for something in it. Eventually, he pulled a small package from his bag and slid it across the table. It was an old, leather-bound book. Ben recognized it immediately. "It's your grandfather's recipe journal. Thought you might want it," his father said, still not looking at him. Ben opened the book. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, oil, stains, pencil edits, a piece of family history, and that, more than any speech, meant something. "Thank you," Ben whispered. His father finally looked at him. "I don't know if I'll understand all of this right away, but I don't want to lose you anymore." Ben swallowed hard. It was the clumsy beginning of a proud man trying to reconnect. "This is a start," he said. They finished their coffee in silence, but for the first time, the silence was comfortable. Coffee, snow, and promises. That week, the first snow of winter fell over Lancaster. Delicate flakes blanketed rooftops and piled in sidewalk corners. The town, already quiet, grew. Even more still, introspective. Ben and Tyler spent the afternoons at home, cooking simple meals, listening to music, watching old movies wrapped in blankets. They laughed at bad voice dubbing, debated spices, and shared childhood stories. One night, as the snow fell softly outside, Ben cooked a special dinner, butternut squash lasagna with ricotta, inspired by a recipe from his grandfather's old notebook. Tyler, moved, said, "You seem lighter, Ben. I've never seen you like this. I think I had to come back to remember who I am, what makes me happy. And you're part of that now." Tyler smiled and reached across the table, taking Ben's hand. "Have you thought about staying here?" Ben didn't answer right away. He looked out the window, watching the snow dance in the cold air. In a place that had once made him feel rejected, he'd found something he never expected: belonging. For the first time in years. "I don't want to leave," said. Honestly, it wasn't a plan. It was a promise, a seed planted in winter's quiet. The next morning, Tyler took Ben to a local bookstore that sold handmade journals. They picked one together, fabric cover, aged pages. Ben decided to start writing his own collection of recipes, not just culinary ones, but memories, moments, and people shaping this new chapter of his life. A place at the table. The following Sunday, Ben received a new message from his mom. "We're having lunch at home. Bring Tyler if you'd like." It was the first time she mentioned his name directly. Not as a shadow, but as an invitation. Ben showed the message to Tyler, who smiled. A nervous smile he didn't bother to hide. "Are you ready for this? I don't know. But I think it's important. For both of us." They arrived at Ben's childhood home with a chicken pot pie and a dessert they'd made together. Cranberry cheesecake. They were welcomed with hugs. His mother smiled. A real smile. His father, a bit more reserved, shook Tyler's hand and invited him in. During lunch, the atmosphere was light. There was laughter. Talk about books, food, and the bitter cold outside. Tyler's presence no longer felt like a disruption, but rather a gentle curiosity. At one point, Ben's father shared a story from his youth that made everyone laugh. It was a simple memory, but one that sealed something quietly important: the recognition of this new time. After dessert, they sat in the living room with hot tea. Ben's mother handed Tyler a small gift, a hand-embroidered dish towel with autumn leaves. "I made this a few years ago. I never knew who it was, for now I do." Tyler thanked her, visibly moved. A small gesture, full of meaning. As they left, Ben's father walked him to the door. He paused and said, "If you want to bring him again, he's welcome." Ben nodded, holding back tears, the kind born of relief. On the way home, Tyler reached over and took Ben's hand. The car was quiet. Soft music played on the radio. Outside, the world was still cold. But inside the car, Thanksgiving. A year had passed since that first reunion. Since the afternoon Ben, heart pounding, knocked on his parents' door. Since the community dinner that led him to cross paths with Tyler. Since that quiet slice of apple pie and the spontaneous laughter during snowy mornings. A year full of small gestures that, when added up, changed everything. It was Thanksgiving again. The town of Lancaster was preparing as always. Orange lights on porches, flags gently swaying in the chilly late November breeze, and the unmistakable scent of cinnamon in the air. But for Ben, everything tasted different now. Familiar. Comforting. This time, he wasn't staying in a hotel. He lived with Tyler in a small sunlit apartment near downtown, decorated with botanical illustration prints, vintage kitchen tools, and stacks of books in every possible corner. On top of the fridge, his grandfather's recipe journal now shared space with a new notebook, the one he and Tyler had bought together. It was filled with notes, stories, and recipes born from a shared life. On the morning of the holiday, Ben woke early, as he always did on special dates. He had prepared the pie crust the night before and was now mixing spices as soft sunlight filtered through the fogged windows. Tyler shuffled into the kitchen wearing an oversized sweatshirt, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "You were up before. The alarm. Again," he said, smiling. "Couldn't sleep. I've got a feast to cook." "We have a feast to cook," Tyler corrected, kissing his forehead. Their home would be the gathering place this year. For the first time, Ben's parents, his younger sister and her kids, and 2 of Tyler's close friends were coming for dinner. An unlikely mix not long ago. But now it made sense. Tyler handled drinks and table settings, while Ben took charge of the menu. Stuffed turkey, garlic mashed potatoes, homemade cranberry sauce, pecan pie, pumpkin bread, arugula salad with goat cheese, and of course, the classic pumpkin pie, spiced with a touch of allspice, a recipe inherited and adapted from the old family journal. At 4 p.m., the doorbell rang. Ben's mom was the first to walk in, bundled in a heavy coat, and carrying a dish of gratin potatoes. His father followed, holding a pack of sodas and wearing a much calmer expression than a year before. "Smells better than anything my oven's ever made," he joked. "That's because we're not afraid of garlic around here," Ben replied playfully. Ben's sister arrived with the kids racing around the living room, filling the house with laughter. Tyler's friends, a couple from the building, brought flowers and a bottle of wine. The table was long, improvised from two pushed-together ones, covered with a beige cloth stitched with hand-sewn leaves, a gift from Ben's mom. Every dish was served with care, and before they started eating, Ben stood up to speak. "Last year I came back to this town without knowing exactly why. Or maybe I did, but I was too afraid to admit it. I just wanted to know if I still belonged. And I found out my place isn't a location. It's people. It's you." Everyone listened quietly, visibly moved. "I'm thankful for today, for us being here together, for the time we've had to learn and grow, and for Tyler, who showed up when I least expected, and who is now a part of who I am." Tyler smiled, squeezing Ben's hand under the table. Ben's mom discreetly wiped her eyes. His father, silent, nodded, and the kids, not understanding much, clapped when everyone began to toast. During dinner there was no tension, no awkward silences. Conversation flowed. Laughter, memories, playful debates about which pie was the best. Tyler, shy at first, won over the kids with a funny story from school. Ben's dad shared memories of the first recipes he learned from his own father, and for the first time, Ben's mom asked for Tyler's pumpkin pie recipe, the one he'd made entirely on his own. Later, with dishes washed and the living room quieter, Ben and Tyler sat side by side on the couch, watching the gentle movement of their family around them. "Do you think this will ever feel normal?" Tyler asked. "It already does," Ben answered, smiling. The TV was on low, showing footage from the parade in New York. Outside, the first star appeared in the November sky. And inside the house, the warmth wasn't just from the oven or the flickering candles, but from the connections built patiently, courageously, and with love. That Thanksgiving, no one had to hide who they were. No one had to leave before dessert. Everyone had a place at the table. And for the first time in a very long time, Ben felt like he truly belonged, not just to a family,